Greetings and welcome to episode 4 of Spiritual Practices for Tough Times. Thank you for joining us today as we are live streaming from McKillop United Church here in Lethbridge, Alberta. I'm Trevor, and I'm grateful that you are with us today as we gather for another episode as we continue our journey in these times. As we start, I'd like to light a candle to signify our that the sacred light is within us in all of creation and in these tough times. And I hope you have a beverage or a cup of tea or coffee or something that else as you're watching this now or later in the day that helps you feel that we are connected in a sense of community, that we are together in this time. I hope you know that even though we're not physically together, we are connected by a sacred presence and flow that flows through all of us and all of creation and in this time. And also that whatever is happening for you right now and however you feel, it's okay. It's okay. And I hope you know that we are not alone. Well, it's day 12 of our social isolation and it feels like isolation. It's supposed to be social distancing. Maybe you are quarantined right now after being away and out of the country and you're in your 14-day period, or maybe you're waiting for a test, or maybe you're like a lot of us right now is trying to practice social distancing at day 12. It reminds me of this next slide, which is the headlines from the Globe and Mail, talking about what the government's trying to do and that possibly we're having some more community spread right now. And as this is happening, it's wonderful that we're sharing all these amazing memes and different points of humor, because we have to have some humor right now. It reminds me of this comic of it's sort of a riff on Jesus feeding the 5,000. Instead of 5,000 is, hey, can you do that trick with toilet paper now? And as this all is going around, I'm aware that life is still happening around us. I went out in the backyard this morning, and here's a scene of our tulips growing in the backyard. The snow is melting, the tulips are growing. It's really this weird paradox as we come together each time, and I don't know if that's how you feel right now, but it's this paradox of that we're waiting. There's paradox that spring is coming, the paradox that our lives are going on, and we're trying to work with these ways in different ways. Maybe you feel like this Red Rover comic. In this comic, Rover says, "I've got a headache." And Red says, "Since when do you get headaches?" And Rover says, "Well, every so often." And then the next one we see Rover chasing a squirrel, not seeing what's around him and smacking in the tree. Maybe you feel like this is what COVID-19 has done to you and your life, that you have run into a tree, that COVID-19 has sort of smashed into us. How are you feeling today? How are you feeling? Well, you know what? I'm feeling like this. I'm feeling some foreboding. I'm feeling grief at times. I wish we could go back to the carefree days where you didn't have to worry about washing your hands, being 2 meters from people, and all the different rules we're doing at night. I sometimes feel anxious and dread and depleted, and there's this gloomy feeling, especially today. If you look out your window, at least here in Lethbridge, it's gloomy, it's cloudy, and this sense of melancholy. It reminds me of this Headspace video of what to do.
To imagine a bright blue sky stretching off into the distance. Feels pretty good, right? This is a perfect metaphor for the mind, a blank canvas on which thoughts, feelings, and experiences appear. Okay, so maybe there are just a few clouds, but they tend not to bother us or distract us too much. especially if they're the cute little fluffy variety. This is how the mind appears when it's calm, bright, serene, and happy. But life isn't always easy. Sometimes there are a lot more clouds in the sky. Sometimes they might be the dark and stormy variety. Occasionally, we might even begin to wonder if a hurricane's on the way. It gets to the point that it's hard to think of anything else. In fact, sometimes we get so obsessed by the clouds that we forget about the blue sky altogether. But it's still there. Every time you're in a plane and you fly through the clouds, there it is, right? Without fail, blue sky. It's easy to forget that what we're looking for is already here. And that's why we need reminding.
We are here today. Spiritual practices are a way to be reminded that in whatever sense of gloom or clouds or whatever is happening in our lives in this moment, right here and now, that there is still blue sky and that we can hold all of what's happening for us in this reality with an equanimity that passes all understanding and brings a sense of peace that's not connected to outcomes or life having to be a certain way. So I'd like to invite us now into our 15-second breathing practice. And as we're learning to do this after each episode, let me remind you that there are many ways to do it. So you might want to breathe in and then breathe out and count 1, 2. Maybe you do the 4 square breathing, which is a certain exercise, or you may just want to take deep breaths. In this time together today, what I'll do is I'll ring the meditation bell, and then we'll have a time where we're breathing together, and you get to practice how you want to breathe. And while you're breathing, if suddenly a thought comes up, or an emotion, or you want to scratch your face, which we're not supposed to these days, or something's annoying you outside, remember, just come back to your breath and just gently let go. Does that sound okay with you? Do you feel ready? Well, to help you be ready with any type of spiritual practice, and there's not a right or wrong spiritual practice or one that's best, you have to find them that work for you. When you're doing these sort of types of breathing exercise, you might want to have your feet on the floor. You might want to sit up straight. You might want to just take a moment and feel your body. Take a couple deep breaths before we begin. And then it's helpful sometimes to close your eyes because it's just one less stimulus. So, are you ready? Well, let us begin. I'm going to ring the meditation bell and then we'll enter into this time of this 15-second breathing practice, which we might just stretch it out just a few more seconds today. So as we begin, just allow yourself to slowly sink into your body and to take a breath. And then let that breath out. So today I'm not going to count, but I'm just going to breathe with you. We're breathing together. And as we're breathing together, we're connecting with a breathing life that holds us, that's with us, no matter what thought or emotion we have. Just allow your breath to help you let go and to be here with each breath, with each inhalation, and with each exhalation. Just breathe and let go. As we end this breathing practice, you might just want to slowly take a moment. As you slowly open your eyes, I invite you to look around and notice your surroundings and what stands out to you that brings just a moment of beauty or clarity or joy or peace for you today. For we need these moments in our time. And I invite you, if this practice works for you, to use it in those moments when you feel like the storm clouds are gathering all around you, like that Headspace video, and everything is happening. And just to use it, if the kids for you are getting out of hand, or somebody that you're with is annoying you, or if you are alone and you feel afraid or lonely, just to use that. So how do you feel in your body now? Is your mind a little quieter? And do you feel that underlying calm that's there? Even just for a second. Just a second. So I'd like to talk to you now about how spiritual practices help us to find a greater degree of space in our lives and a greater degree of awareness when we are in tough times. Right now, we might be going between two settings in our lives, sort of like this Mind Geek comic. The settings are this, that we are going between I'm okay or fine as one switch, and then the other switch is like this is Jumanji. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen Jumanji, but it's a movie. The classic one is by Robin Williams, and it's when everything goes to total chaos and completely falling apart, and it's just like over. And sometimes when we find ourselves in tough times, it's sort of easy to try and go between those two switches. It's almost like everything's super fine, and I'm super happy, and isn't this great, and we're going to numb everything out, and it's just going to try and get through this. And the other one is like the world is falling apart. And you're saying things like, oh my God, I'm never going to make it through this. This is the end. My life is over. And those are the two switches. Well, there's something in between them. There's something in between these two switches. And what happens is for us is that spiritual practices allows us to work with feelings, and often negative feelings and thoughts, so that we don't allow them to become rigid and tight. And when they become rigid and tight, it causes us to become rigid and tight, and our world sort of shrinks and we shrivel up, and then it's like we can't see anything. It's like we're living all from this part of our head, from our neurocortex and our mammalian brain, and we're just all sort of shriveled up. And what a spiritual practice does, it lets us come back into our body, come back into this present moment, and find a greater amount of space and awareness and ease, even as, the feelings of dread and foreboding and anxiety and loneliness and sadness and all these things are still going on. It gives us a way to work with them. Part of what we have to come to realize as we're working through these tough times right now, and it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint, I believe, is that we are designed in a certain way, and we have a certain way we look at the world. And Richard Rohr, in this video from the Center for Action and Contemplation, helps explain what type of reality we're actually living in, and how this reality actually causes us to go into this tight, clinging space.
Well, I don't know why God took this risk, but I've checked it out now with brain surgeons, even people who understand this mechanism up here. And the brain is a binary system. It does know by comparison and competition with something else. And if you're fathers, you see this in your little children. They know tall in relationship to short. They know black in relationship to white. They know gay in relationship to straight. Well, kids don't think that way yet, but you know, that's the way the mind forms. And most people, I'm sad to say, don't go much beyond that. Now that's called thinking like a child, or I would call it dualistic thinking. Alcoholics Anonymous calls it all or nothing thinking, black and white thinking. I always say I'd be an alcoholic too, because you're not very happy. You can't be happy with a dualistic mind. You're disappointed in everything, because what you're doing with a dualistic mind, you ask for an explanation. Every event, every person, every situation that comes toward you, you don't realize it, but you split it. That part of it that you already like, agree with, understand, and that part that doesn't threaten you and that is not mysterious to you, you call that true or good. That's the way the mind works. Yeah, and I work that way too, if I don't watch it. If she's good looking, you give her attention. Do you understand? And the part that isn't good looking, well, doesn't deserve my attention. That's the way the ego operates. It only takes in that which it can control and that which is to its personal advantage. Now, what you've done in splitting every moment, and I mean every moment, you eliminate half of everything. The dark side, the broken side, the problematic side, the mysterious side. Now, if God is by definition mystery, do you see why you stay in the first level of religion forever? Forever. You can study your Bible all your life, and you will interpret that Bible at the first level. I mean, that's why there's racists who are Baptists. You know, it just blows your mind. How can a Baptist who loves the Scriptures be a racist? It seems like it's a contradiction in terms, but we know it isn't. Because you can understand even the Word of God at a childish, self-serving level. That's called dualistic thinking. Now, when I tried to reintroduce that word to the Western church, I thought I was going to get a lot of pushback, because it isn't a word that Western Christianity used very much. We spoke in the mystical tradition of unitive consciousness, but we didn't speak of non-dual. I said, until we start describing it precisely, it's a refusal to split. People don't get it. And they don't recognize how they are splitting all the time and eliminating everything that's threatening, everything that's mysterious, everything that's not me. So the only people that get in are white American Catholics, if you're my group, you know, white American middle-class Catholics, preferably. Well, this leaves you in a very small pond. Certainly not what Jesus called the kingdom of God. This is what we're dealing with. So the Catholic word for that different seeing was contemplation. It was to contemplate the moment. Now, I know that isn't the way we use the word anymore. You grew up probably hearing the word contemplate as, well, I'm going to think about that. I'm going to contemplate that. That's not what it meant for 1,400 years. Contemplation was take this head off and put a different head on, where I don't look at it from the reference point of me, and I don't look at it in split form. I accept the whole enchilada, exactly as it is, good and bad. As Jesus would say, weeds and wheat, let them both grow in the field together. See, he was looking at life contemplatively. But we have to be taught how to do that today. In fact, we got to do our teaching real fast. The dualistic mind is about to destroy our politics. Oh, it has destroyed it already, and is destroying most of our churches. See, if you've defined religion as being in control and being right and being on top and looking good, and making money while doing it, you're not going to let anybody kick out the chair from underneath you. You're used to always looking good, moral high ground. You see, religion is very dangerous because religion can give you moral high ground without achieving any moral high ground, just in your own mind. Because you attach the word Catholic or Methodist or Anglican to your name, and you say you read the Bible and you say you go to a church service, this gives you a very attractive self-image. But your self-image is not you. It's just your self-image. And your thinking doesn't make it so. Your false self is who you think you are, and your thinking doesn't make it so. So what you're learning in contemplation is how to detach from this self-image. And that's why, I mean, I'm happy to dress as a priest in an appropriate place, but I can't do it all the time because then I get attached to that image. Do you understand? And I want you to call me Father. And I'm offended when you don't call me Father. And then I start thinking of myself as a father, even sometimes when I'm not acting in a very fatherly way. It screws you up. Any self-image, if it's positive. Well, actually, negative is just as bad. If you think you're a loser and you write your storyline that way and get attached to that, that's just as much a problem. So what the mystic said is detach from either one. I don't need to think of myself as better than you, and I don't need to think of myself as worse than you. I am, and you said it before, Travis, I am who I am as the image of God, and that levels the playing field. Now we're all identical. Everything else is window dressing. Everything else is an accident. Everything else is a gift of God, and it's going to die when we die. So,
Even people bombing consulates?
Yeah, even terrorists, who we know. I mean, if you'd hear the stories of terrorists, where did they learn that kind of hatred? Somewhere, someone hated them, shamed them, humiliated them. God knows that. I'm not justifying what they did. But Jesus said, I mean, the worst thing that ever happened, theologically speaking, not really objectively speaking, but theologically speaking, the worst thing that ever happened was the killing of God by man. And Jesus forgave it. So that means that there's nothing else we can't forgive.
Cut! Can't sell this. Turn the camera off. Damn it.
It does change the script. It really does.
So what I really like about this video is that this play around certainty and mystery and how that interacts with our negative feelings and thoughts, and sometimes positive thoughts and positive feelings. But it's like, are we living black and white, as Richard Rohr says, or in color? And so I want you to hear this. I'm not saying that negative feelings and thoughts are bad. That's not what it's about. What negative feelings and thoughts are they are a signal to us. So when we start to experience all these things like anxiety and foreboding and gloom and melancholy and grief, and I'm sure you could name a lot more because there are wonderful lists of negative feelings. If you'd like to understand your feelings, go to the Google nonviolent communication feelings, and they have one of the most extensive lists of feelings. So we have these feelings, and what they are is, for me at least, and this is from more of a spiritual perspective. I'm not a counselor or a psychotherapist, and sometimes it's really good. We need those tools. But when, in a spiritual sense, when we start to feel those clouds gathering around us and all these negative feelings and thoughts, what they are is they are a signal. They're a signal that part of me is trying to hang on to certainty. And I'm splitting reality in half. And it's so much easier to have things certain, but there is this whole reality that's a mystery. It's a mystery. And for part of me, that's scary that there's a mystery that I cannot control. But for another part of me, if I can let go, there's a deep peace just to live in this mystery. And what COVID-19 has done is it's like it has slammed us into this reality that the certainty that we thought of ourselves and our world is sort of like a stack of cards stacked up in a house, and it's been blown over, and all these feelings are coming up, and they're real and they're valid. And how do we work with them? How do we release them so we can fall back into a new normal, a new reality, or maybe what I'd like to say is a bigger mystery of life where we don't have to worry? So spiritual practices help us step back in our hearts and minds, in our awareness and from our emotions and our thoughts. And spiritual practices help to create space, to uncling, to allow a greater perspective, and to break through the tight way we are living that sometimes creates a lot more suffering for ourselves. And this leads to acceptance, allowing and enabling the emergence of a vaster, more whole insight into our current reality and experience. You know, for me, this is the advantage of spiritual practices. What they do is they allow us to fall into a presence that can do more and imagine. And when we can let go from this clinging, something will emerge that helps us work with the mystery we find ourselves in. It reminds me of this short Headspace video that talks about this.
Training the mind is often quite different to how people imagine it to be. Maybe they have an idea it's about stopping thoughts or eliminating feelings, but the reality is a bit different. An easy way to think of it is to imagine yourself sitting on the side of a busy road, the passing cars representing the thoughts and the feelings. All you have to do is to sit there and watch the cars. Sounds easy, right? But what usually happens is that we feel a bit unsettled by the movement of the traffic. So we run out into the road and try and stop the cars, or maybe even chase after a few, forgetting that the idea was to just sit here. And of course, all of this running around only adds to the feeling of restlessness in the mind. So training the mind is about changing our relationship with the passing thoughts and feelings, learning how to view them with a little more perspective. And when we do this, we naturally find a place of calm. Will we sometimes forget the idea of the exercise and become distracted? Of course we will. But as soon as we remember, here we are, back on the side of the road again, just watching the traffic go by, perfectly at ease in both body and mind.
I really feel in these tough times that one of the gifts we're being given is this a moment to awaken. This is what tough times and suffering and change invite us into. We could try and create another certainty, or we can use it to grow into a wider wholeness and reality. So spiritual practices are really a gentle way to help our minds and our hearts find a deeper calmness. And so I'd like to suggest another practice for you and introduce one today. It's a practice where we sit again. You might want to close your eyes. And when we feel these thoughts, instead of imagining them like traffic on a road, and which may work for you, there's also other practices like Thomas Keating talks about seeing your thoughts and emotions as little boats on the river going by. And what happens is you jump onto one of those little boats, and when you remember, you jump back to the riverside. But what I like to suggest today is this practice called wind mindfulness practice. So the practice will be this. I will start the meditation bell, and in the practice I'll lead you through a guided meditation, and then we'll have a moment of silence. In the guided meditation, what I'm going to invite you to do is when you have any type of thought, any type of emotion, any type of sensation in your body or a sound from outside, interrupting you, is just to let that sensation, that thought, that emotion find itself on a breeze as you're sitting on a beach, and just let it flow away, flow out into the ocean, flow out into the breeze. And that's the practice. Every time you keep coming back to that. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So again, get comfortable in your chair. Maybe put your feet on the ground. Gently feel your body. And then I will ring the bell here and we'll start our time. So as the music starts to come up, as you start to hear the birds, and then you hear the waves, I invite you to take a deep breath. As you inhale and as you exhale. And just invite, imagine yourself sitting on the favorite beach that you've been to. Maybe it's a lake or an ocean. It might be by a river. And just to hear those sounds, the birds, of the waves. And I invite you to feel it's a calm day. It's sunny out. Imagine that. Imagine the warm sun hitting your face, and then you feel the gentle breeze coming off the water. And as we sit on this beach together with the warm sun shining upon our face, and the gentle ground beneath us, holding us, and that lovely breeze flickering on our face and our body. I invite you now in this moment to whatever is happening for you is okay. Don't judge yourself. Don't judge your thoughts or emotions. Don't judge what's happening in the world. Just gently imagine those thoughts, those emotions, what's bothering you, what's changed in your life. Just to imagine them just gently coming out of your body and landing on the gentle breeze. And then that breeze just takes them away into the horizon of the ocean. With each breath you take, with each exhaltation, continue no matter what thought comes up, what emotion, just to let the wind to gently carry them away from you without judging them, without trying to fix them, without clinging to them. Just let them float away. And be present in your body and in your heart, where there's a calmness that's as huge as the ocean. Let the thoughts and the feelings, just for this moment now, gently go onto the wind and the breeze. birds speak to you. Let the ground hold you. Let the sunshine warm your face. Know that a mystery holds us, even in these tough times. And when we can uncling, we can let go, when we can allow, something will emerge. Something, as we let the thoughts and emotions go under the breeze, will emerge. Maybe now, maybe later today, maybe as you're falling asleep tonight, maybe in a dream. Just take a moment to hear the waves, to feel the sunlight upon your face, to feel the ground below you. And as we end this practice of the wind carrying away our thoughts and emotions, what intention do you feel your heart and your body asking you to hold for the rest of this day? You might want to write it on a piece of paper and put it in your pocket or somewhere you see, and let that be your guide today. So I invite you to slowly open your eyes and come back into the presence of the room. How are you feeling now? I hope this session episode has given you some wisdom or ways to work in tough times. I hope you know that we can get through this, and we will get through this. And I hope you know that you are held by our presence as we go about our day. And all of us are connected in this presence. And that nothing can separate us from life itself. So may you be blessed, and thank you once again for joining us on this session. Peace be with you, and take care.